The book of Joshua, for a lot of people, it's one of the most difficult and, frankly, troubling parts of the Bible. It reads like the story of a brutal, divinely ordered conquest. But is that what's really going on? Well, in this explainer, we're going to dig in and uncover how this ancient story of war might actually be a radical message of hope. So just try to picture the scene, right? The Israelites have just spent 40 years, 4 decades, wandering in the wilderness. Their larger-than-life leader, Moses, is gone, and now they're standing right on the edge of the Promised Land. The only problem? It's filled with fortified cities and powerful kings. So how on earth does this wandering group of people claim a homeland? That's the huge problem the book of Joshua sets out to solve. And the man tasked with leading them through this is Joshua. His name is incredibly important. In Hebrew, it's Jehoshua, and it means Yahweh saves. This isn't just a fun fact about his name, it's the entire theme of the book baked right in. It's a sign that God, not human armies, is going to be the one to deliver the land. Okay, so let's get into the story itself. The first half of the book, chapters 2 through 12, it paints this really clear and stunning picture of a lightning-fast, divinely backed military campaign to take the land of Canaan. The whole invasion kicks off with an incredible miracle, the parting of the Jordan River. It's a powerful echo of the Red Sea crossing in Exodus. Then comes the story everyone knows, the fall of Jericho, with its walls just tumbling down. After that, the strategic capture of Ai. And from there, Joshua leads these sweeping campaigns, just crushing coalitions of kings in the south and then up in the north. The image we get is of a totally united Israel achieving a complete and total victory. And to just cap it all off, the book gives us this final tally, a list of 31 Canaanite kings defeated by Joshua and the Israelis. The message seems crystal clear, right? This was a total, absolute, no questions asked victory. But, and this is a really big but, here's where the story takes a really sharp turn. Is this a straightforward, literal history of what actually happened? Well, when we start to look a little closer, the evidence suggests things are way more complicated. Because when you start to dig in, both within the Bible itself and by looking at what archaeologists have found, that story of a quick, total conquest really starts to unravel. So the first big contradiction, it pops up right inside the Bible. The very next book, the book of Judges, paints a completely different picture. Instead of one big, swift conquest, it describes this long, messy, fragmented process where individual tribes are struggling to get a foothold, and they're often just living right alongside the Canaanites. And, most historians today would say this second picture is probably a lot closer to what actually happened. And it isn't just other parts of the Bible that raise questions. The ground itself, you could say, it tells a different story. Modern archaeology really challenges the big conquest narrative we see in Joshua. Okay, let's just look at the two most famous conquests, Jericho and Ai. The Bible gives us these detailed reports about Jericho's miraculous fall and the military capture of Ai. But here's the thing. Archaeological evidence suggests that around the time the Israelites would have shown up, Jericho was already in ruins and mostly unoccupied. And the city of Ai, whose name literally means the ruin, it was also uninhabited. So this presents a major conflict with a literal reading of the text. So what is going on here? Were the authors just making stuff up? Well, not exactly. The real key is to understand what their goal was. As one scholar puts it, the author was way more interested in the meaning and the significance of these events than in reporting exactly what happened. They weren't trying to write a history textbook, they were crafting a theological message. And that brings us to the book's true purpose. To really get it, we have to understand who it was actually written for, and maybe even more important, when it was written. This timeline reveals a huge clue. The events in the book are set way back, around 1200 BC, but scholars are pretty much all in agreement that the book of Joshua as we have it was compiled and edited much later, around 560 BC. That's a gap of more than 500 years. And this context, well, it changes everything.
So here it is, the crucial point. The book wasn't written for the generation conquering the land. It was written for their descendants hundreds of years later who had lost the land. They were living as defeated exiles in Babylon. And understanding that audience completely reframes the entire story.
So for these exiles, the book of Joshua wasn't a history lesson. It was this incredibly powerful message of hope. It was a reminder that God is faithful, that he keeps his promises, like the promise of the land. It showed them that just as God gave them the land once under Joshua, he could do it again. He could restore it to them. But it came with a really important condition. Sin leads to disaster, like their exile, but obedience to God leads to victory. So, when we put all these pieces together, we start to see that the book of Joshua is so much more than just a history of some ancient war. The book is basically a masterclass in what scholars call Deuteronomistic theology. It's a very clear principle that you see running through a lot of Israel's historical books. And the idea is pretty simple. If the people obey God's law, they'll be rewarded. They'll prosper. If they disobey, they'll be punished and lose the land. In that light, the story of this swift and total conquest becomes less about historical accuracy and more of a powerful parable. It's a stylized, theological story designed to show those exiles in Babylon a simple, powerful truth. Perfect obedience to God, like Joshua's, results in the perfect fulfillment of God's promise, getting the land. So we're left with this choice, this question. Is the book of Joshua a manual for holy war? Or is it something much more profound? A powerful message about faith for a people in crisis. A story teaching them that their future doesn't depend on military power, but on their faithfulness to God